Welcome to the Transform Your Relationship Show. I'm Laura Rubenstein here with the amazing and wonderful Dr. Roberta Shaler. Hi, Roberta.
Hello, Laura. We have to find some other way to describe each other. Let's see. And I'm here with the extraordinary and generous Laura
There
Rubenstein.
you go. Thank you. It's so good. We love having our topics that I like to call them touchy topics sometimes because we deal with those things that we're on our hearts and minds, but not people don't often have real good solutions for. But we demystify it, unravel it, use some strategies. I know you have a ton of strategies because of the specialty you have with hijackals and dealing with difficult people, that is not being even used in the professional world of psychology. Have a rare and well thought out, well crafted, and very effective, humane approach. If I can, how would you describe it? Because that's my
I
take
don't
on
know. I just got a vision of my running a shelter. Uh,
shelter
you
for
know,
hijackal
well,
escapee.
in Canada we call where you go and get a rescue dog the Humane Society.
Here too, right?
Yeah, so I just got that hit. But, basically what I endeavored to do is to help people successfully navigate the journey from recognizing to rebuilding and recovering after being in a toxic relationship. So lots and lots and lots of things. And we have a new website going live this weekend, so very excited.
Do you want to
Well, it's the
share what
same
that
website, but it's totally changed, and I think it's going to be exciting and edgy and fun and clear, and
is?
the
Nice.
membership site is upgraded, and oh, so many things. Yes, so when you go to forrelationshiphelp.com, you'll be able to follow the progress as we unveil it by the end of the weekend.
Woohoo. Yes. And I love doing this show with you because I'm all about helping people do what we're going to talk, face issues, and see themselves in a stronger, more powerful light. I do that through hypnosis or coaching. I do that in their businesses and bring out their brands. And together, I love talking with you about, how to demystify and unravel these issues like today's topic, how to face the issues people avoid dealing with. Because we talked about last time where we were doing distractions. If y'all didn't see the distractions episode, it was really good because we uncovered why people distract themselves and how
Yeah.
it can impact your future. But now if you're ready to say, all right, I see myself distracting myself, there's something here, I got to deal with it. How do we face it? How do we face these things we haven't been dealing with, whether it's dishes or what other people are dishing out to us?
Yeah, it's a big deal because some things fall into the straight up procrastination list, and other things are, abject fear of loss or grief or somebody abandoning us, or, really big issues that can impact many areas of our lives. So it's really important to be able to distinguish. And the most important thing is to be able to break it down. These things have a tendency to get bigger and bigger. The more we think about them, the more we avoid them. And so it's important to be able to sit down, focus on it, break it down into the pieces. Because, if we take the dishes thing, okay, maybe you don't do all the dishes. Maybe you put half of them in the dishwasher, leave the rest in soapy water, come back and finish. Maybe that's the way you work best. And the same thing is true of ones that are like overwhelmingly emotional. You can't maybe do them all at once, and you can't maybe prepare to have a difficult conversation all at once. You've got to think your way through it, feel your way through it, and then you feel better prepared. So that's what we need, good approaches.
Yeah, and I find myself, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about how, when I have like a big emotional thing I've been avoiding, or I don't know how to approach, therefore I'm avoiding it. I actually sit with it, and I don't consider myself trying to avoid it. I consider myself sitting with it and trying to figure out what is this manageable bite. I like that break this these situations down into manageable pieces, because then I've done that. I've done exactly what I was like, were you in my house last night? I only did part of my dishes.
Well, I wrote a little book a long time ago called Pack Your Own Parachute. And in there, I talked about how to achieve a lot of these little things. The little book, it's available. And one of the things that I say is you really need to know your TTDCs. And TTDCs are the way that you break things down into teeny tiny doable chunks. And when you know your TDDCs, you're making progress because one teeny tiny doable chunk, check. Next teeny tiny doable chunk, check, right? And so you go, oh, I'm getting somewhere. And then you meet that magic place in the middle where you tip over to, oh, I'm almost done, as opposed to, oh, I've got to start. And this is a way that we can work with ourselves if that's our process. This can be very, very useful.
It's magical, I think, because you actually get something done. I remember, and this is going to sound really strange, but I was rock climbing. Like, I had a harness on, I was on a mountain, and I felt like I am so stuck here. I am so screwed because I don't see the next handhold or foothold in it's not reachable. It's like overwhelming. And then the overwhelm of how the heck am I going to get off of this rock? I either have to, you know, fall, so to speak. I'm on belay, but I'm on a rope, but or I have to do something. And then somebody down below said, "There's a handhold right to your right and a foothold just up above your knee. You got this." And then I did it. I took that one handhold and then they broke it down into those doable chunks, and they put the foot on the knee and he goes, "You got this." I said, "Okay, give me a little assist," because you can hold the rope for me really strong. And then I did it. And then when I got there, I was like, "Oh, that wasn't so hard."
Yeah.
So that's
And
what
you felt accomplished,
yeah, exactly, exactly. So those teeny tiny doable chunks, whether it's you're on a rock trying to climb a mountain or you're trying to get your dishes done, when I only did part of it, I could come back and say, "Oh, I only have a little bit more to do." It's not like this overwhelming task. So,
Mhm.
huge. Now, how do
Well,
we face?
when I went through a period of not being well and I didn't have much energy, I really had to practice this.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes I'll have clients. When I owned the retreat center up in Canada in the 90s, I was working with people who had diagnoses all the time. And I would teach them this very thing. They say, oh, I can't do this. Oh, you can, but it's teeny tiny doable chunks. You can't do it like you used to do it. You can't do it like you'd like to do it, but you can do it.
Yes.
And then, that's a new way of being for people. And sure, many of them recovered and they could have that as one of their strategies. However, it's a good strategy for all of us.
It's a great strategy. And so, how do we translate that into facing the issues that when people are dishing stuff out to us, or we feel like we have something that we are not able to say and express to someone, but we want to make headway in that relationship?
Well, I think there are two parts to that. One of them is when you feel like you have to immediately respond, like somebody does something outrageous and you feel like you can't let that go by. That's a different preparation, a very quick preparation, as
Mhm.
opposed to getting off that call, because of course today everything seems to be a call. Uh,
Right.
Getting off that call and having a think about it and saying, oh, that was just not all right with me on many levels, and then being able to prepare your strategy. So in the moment, one of the good things is to be able to say, I'm going to have to think about that. It's not sitting very well. And so you're just talking about you, as usual. We talk about the personal weather report, but you're just thinking about you, like,
Right.
oh, something just didn't sit right with me with that. I'm going to have to think about that. We'll get back to you on that, and then keep the conversation going. You can do that. If it's totally outrageous, then hopefully you'll master the personal weather report, which is in Kaizen for couples, and be able to say something like, that really doesn't work for me. What would work for me is this. or I feel very disrespected right now, and just sit there. To be able to report out something that's happening within you. You're not calling them disrespectful. You're saying, and of course, there will always be people who say, okay, well, so you're using a strategy and you said you feel disrespected. And really, what you're telling me is I'm disrespectful. And no, actually, I'm just saying this is how I feel and I'm willing to look at it. But I'm just trying to further the conversation by giving you some information about what's going on within me. And you may have to teach like that. You may have to have a teachable moment. But it's very important to not blurt. I've said so many times, when you blurt, you hurt, and you've said it back to me many times. But it's we don't feel good when we blurt, because it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction. It's just a reaction rather than a response. And so we want to practice. And so one of the ways we practice is when it isn't immediate, then we kind of take it offline and have a think about it. Like, what do I want as a result of this exchange with this person? I think that's an invaluable question that I've put out for years with clients and in my writing. Like, take a moment and say, where do I really want to get with this? What do I want as a result of this exchange? Where would I like to be with this relationship or this issue 10 minutes from now? And how would I get to there?
It's so funny you say that. It's similar to what I do in a marketing strategy. I ask people, what result are you wanting to do from doing all this upfront work? Because so many times people just do a marketing thing and do it a market, put on social media, do this, do that. And I'm like, no, you got to take a bigger picture look at this. You're developing relationships with the outside world. So who do you want to attract? Do you want them in your life or not? It's kind of like the same thing. And in what way? And
Mhm.
do you want to piss them off, or do you want to like just, you know, a- attract people who just resonate with your message, and the other people just won't get it, right? So similarly, if you take a think about it, then you can go and say, well, what I really need is this for me, and this is what I want for the overall relationship. And then you can start asking the questions. Okay, so say I want this. How do I get it? Then what's the next
Exactly.
step?
Exactly. And, I remember having a conversation with my grandson, and I said to him, this is a very important question for you, because you should ask it about all kinds of things. What do I want as a result of this exchange? I'm going to use this next half hour anyway. What do I want to exchange that half hour for? Right? I mean, it applies to everything. And so if you're in a situation where there's maybe high emotional content, it's really a good idea to step back, get back into your balanced self, and be able to ask that question. Where would I like to be with this relationship in, as a result of the next conversation? Do I want to preserve the relationship as a higher priority than have my needs met in the exact way I want them met? Do I want to be very, very clear that I have a boundary, and if that happens again, we won't be talking further, you know, and everything in between. So it gives us an opportunity to figure it out. Now, to hook into our last session on distraction, what people really seem to like to do is to have that moment where they know they've got to do something, and then they like to distract themselves like crazy and hope they're going to avoid talking to that person until they're ready, but they're doing nothing to get ready.
Mm.
So where you reduce your anxiety and stress is by right away, while it's fresh in your mind, taking the time to ask these questions. What do I want from this relationship? Where do I want to be in this relationship? Where would I like to end up as a result of this exchange? And and then you begin to grow into that thing that you've decided upon, rather than going, you know, about it, and hoping and having all this anxiety about, what if I see them, what if they call, what if this happens,
And
why have that?
that's there. So where is the step? And I don't know if it comes, when you're thinking about these questions, or you think about these questions, then you take the step to calm yourself, to get back to your center, because sometimes you can clearly think about it after that. So maybe you think, calm, think. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true, and I think calm always is best first. Because take care of yourself. I'm really tired of the analogy of put on your oxygen mask first, but it is that same thing. Like, all right, take care of me first so that I'm in my best thinking self. I am not using my energy for anxiety or stress. Let me get to that place, and then let me choose what I want to think about from there. And sometimes if we have a difficult conversation, maybe it's with a parent or somebody who's been in our life for a long time. And so when we have that think about it, we have to bring ourselves into our adult selves as opposed to all of the emotional stuff from the growing up part. Well, oh, they did this and they did that and all of that kind of thing. Yes, that has some power. But the actual fact is, you don't have to let your parents talk to you in denigrating ways or continue in patterns where they put you down or they diminish your accomplishments or they have to win. And particularly if you had a hijackal parent, you may be distancing yourself from that person because they really are toxic. So you may have to practice distancing because you just want to immediately get hooked in because the hooks are from birth,
Mm.
right? And so you have to do a little extra work.
And sometimes it's a lot, and getting a third party in is a really good idea.
Yes, it really can be.
I mean, sports professionals get, a third party in to help them enhance their performance, to be at peak performance. Having a guide or counselor or coach at your side is not a bad thing. Reading books and taking the time to do the journaling and facing those issues, being able to break them down into bits and think about, what is it that you want as a bigger picture for yourself, for the relationship, for your time, like you said as well, are huge ways to face issues that we have a pattern of avoiding. And definitely go back and watch the last episode because we talked about why we're avoiding things. And then the first step is awareness, and now the second step is actually facing it and going into this place of getting calm. And what are the steps? We might do a whole show on how to get calm. I know we've done bits and pieces here and there on breathing techniques and things like that, but I think that would be a great show to do, especially in this increasingly anxious time.
Well, yes. I mean, people are having different relationships with themselves now. And whether or not they've caught up with themselves and actually brought it into recognition, maybe yes, maybe no, but it is different. I mean, I notice that I have a different relationship with the things and my house and all of that because I'm here all the time. And so I'm just seeing life differently and life is slower. Even though time goes faster, life is slower because I don't have to get in my car. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have places to be and people to see. And so there's more time to reflect on yourself if you take it. But if you're going stir crazy, it may just be that you're avoiding looking at yourself too. That's an option.
Mm.
So notice that because things will get awfully big. I wrote a book called What You Pay Attention to Expands. And if you start particularly with a negative thought or a big concern, like somebody's not going to like me or, whatever it is that's going on, or I'm not being respected,
Hmm.
you can grow that out of proportion to something absolutely huge, overriding and smothering if you just keep thinking about it. So you need to balance yourself so you can balance your thinking.
Oh, I like that. Balance yourself to balance your thinking. That's a little meme there. I think that's great. And so when we get to that calm and we can think about it instead of mushrooming it out into some anxiety, we can actually think about the strategies, what there is to do next about it instead of getting into fear and paralyzed about it. Because that is the danger. Is like if we have a think about it, we might get too paralyzed about it. So getting from that paralyzed state to a state of being, responsive to the situation and not avoidant is can be tricky.
Oh, yes. And depending on your level of awareness, maybe you've been very busy, maybe you've had a very outgoing life, you've been full of people and kids and events and carpools and, you know, improving your career status by going to meetings and networking and meeting people. And now that's not happening. And so your focus is different or can be different. Instead of grieving what you don't have, you can change your focus to saying, all right, this is a good time for a little cocooning every day. What's really going on? When somebody pushes my buttons like that, what's really going on? It's a great time to get help, as you said, because you have the time to think about it. Many of my clients, and they come from all parts of the world and they're all experiencing the same thing, say, well, I just couldn't put it off anymore because the relationship is right here in my house. And I just cannot avoid it by going out.
Yeah, and getting that third party assistance is a good thing. We are here to support each other. And the one thing that may be missing is the skill set that you can impart to someone to help them get out of that paralysis. Because get from
Yeah.
their thoughts of anxiety into thoughts of response, effective responses that can help them get where they want to go. Because if I say, well, I want to just have peace in my house, but this person is not about peace, how do I have peace? I'm stuck. Then what do we got? We got, oh, I'm going to retreat, 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 and I can get very depressed.
Or maybe that's a thing to have a conversation with that person about, because maybe I made that all up. Maybe that's not what they're thinking. Maybe that's not what they're about. And that's my impression. And if I care about the relationship, I can say, I have this impression that you don't want to manage this, or you avoid this, or you're very angry with me, or whatever. And I'd really like to talk to you about whether my impression or my assumption is accurate. Because sometimes we're operating on assumptions. Many times when I'm working with couples, Laura, I will slowly learn their history. And then I will say to them, that last relationship that you had that was so terrible, at your worst moments, you put that person's face on your current partner. And you're responding to your current partner as if they're the person who hurt you. And we do that kind of thing. So we make assumptions about this person based on what we learned from that person. Now, sure, experience is a great teacher, but we can't make the assumption that the new person is the same or thinking the same or has the same values or even intended to do what they're doing. And so it's very important, maybe that's one of the things that causes us to not deal with things, is that we think we already know it's going to be really difficult and it's going to be like it was the last time. And I've dealt with this before and I should know better. We get into that whole conversation. Instead, we say, I'd just like to have a cup of tea and ask you if I've kind of got the right assessment of the situation and find out.
and see if you can have a normal level conversation.
Yeah, or even if the person says, yeah, I sometimes have a lot of heat around that, but you know what? I'd really like to make that different. So I'd be willing to go deeper with you on this issue. Wow, duh. Now we have an opportunity to talk further.
Yeah, it's
Or if the
interesting.
person goes off on you like a Roman candle, then you go, oh, I think I might have been right.
And then what do you do? Deer in headlights, right? I hate those deer in headlights moments, like when somebody goes off and you're like, "What did I do wrong?"
But you see, that's interesting. What did I do wrong? I invite people to switch that one, because that's an automatic response from
Uh-huh.
younger years,
Yes.
and say, "Oh, tell me more about that." So you lean in to learn about the person.
Ah, yeah. So you can get out of your deer in headlights moment by leaning in and saying, "This is a strong reaction. Tell me more.
Exactly.
Tell
Exactly.
me."
"Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Tell me more about what you're thinking." And always remember, if somebody goes ballistic or goes off like a Roman candle, or there's a deer in the headlights moment, always remember that it's about them. So when you lean in, you can become curious about them, and that will help a lot because you won't be wallowing in your own stuff and fears, and you will be demonstrating interest in the other, which is probably what they would really like to have. And if you have a good relationship with this person generally, then you may be opening a moment for them to do some reflection with you there that will help them feel better or solve an issue or think something through. It can be a very great gift in a close relationship.
I find that some people just want to be right.
Oh, yeah, there's a bunch of those.
So if we're
We
leaning
call them
in, tell me more.
hijackals.
We call them hijackals. Yes, we do. Okay. So when we lean in and we say, "Tell me more," and like I'm right because of this, and I'm right because of that, and they're not saying it that way, but this and that, and this and that, and the other
And they
thing,
might be.
and they might be. And I find that you got to agree with them. Like, what if all they want is to be right, it's like, okay, you're right.
Okay, well, here's three tricks. When somebody goes off like a Roman candle, or they want to be right, you can simply match them using a little NLP. And I'm not a vast fan of the over application of NLP, but I did like this. I did a master's program in NLP, so I do have opinions. But I like this is one of the ways that you let someone know you're really there with them is that you match their intensity, their pace, and their volume as the beginning, right? So, wow, you've got a lot of energy around that. I bet you've really thought about that. Tell me a few things that are underneath that energy. And so you match them and you pull back, and they feel like, oh, you got me. And then you can actually bring them down a little bit in the energy so they can get back into their mind. Because what happens when someone gets a lot of energy around it is they go into their feelings. And when they do that, their body goes into arousal. When the body goes into the arousal, the brain thinks that we're being attacked. And when we're being attacked, the brain says, keep the lung and hearts alive. So we lose some blood down from all our appendages, including our head. And so we're not thinking very straight. So if somebody has a big reaction and I can lean in and go, wow, you really have a lot to say about that. And it seems like it's got a lot of punch for you. Maybe would you be willing to talk about that a little bit more so I could understand? Because I'm really interested and I'd like to know. And that gives them the opportunity to kind of breathe down. And of course, if they're planning on going stratospheric, you can't do anything about that. Just,
Especially if they keep going on and
oh,
on about how you're to blame.
yeah, maybe I'll sidestep this conversation.
So yeah,
Not
when
that I'm unwilling to take responsibility for my part in it, but if I didn't have any of that, I can only be interested in your response. Like, oh, I had no idea that's not accurate for me, but I'd love to know where you got that impression.
and I'm sure they'd have a really good response.
Well, sometimes, there you go again, just being that person. Would you take a course or something? People who are outrageous are very threatened by you not being responsive to them in the way that they intended, to make you afraid of them or to make you go away or to make you get off that subject. And when you don't do that, when you actually sit there and be open to a conversation, they get quite discombobulated. So they'll either accelerate their rage or they'll go into, what? That's psychobabble. What are you talking about? You just don't get that I'm really annoyed with you. Well, yeah, I do, and I'm interested in it, but I'm also not going to get my knickers in a twist over it. Your mic's off.
Thank you. And I don't have to go down that path with you. Uh, you know, we can, that's what we're talking about is like you're facing the issue, but you're not getting sucked under and drowned out by that issue. Um, so I love the tools we've talked about today, from the personal weather report to the listening and leaning in to the breaking it down into tiny bits to taking a time to have a think about. We've talked about a lot of great incredible tips for how to face issues that people often avoid dealing with. And would love to hear thoughts here that if anyone has any, we are here for you to answer questions and to provide more interesting and stimulating talk around resolving these things so we can have the flourishing relationship, so we can have more peace in our lives and in our world. Thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah, it's important to have tools in your toolbox. And a lot of those tools are developed in the quiet with yourself so that you have them developed. You've thought about, you know, who am I? What are my values? What's my vision for my life? What do I believe about things? Now, that's not just spiritual beliefs. When I say beliefs, how do you believe the world works best? How do you believe that money works? How do you believe that, well, anything works? To be able to really get to know yourself well, so you know what you're dealing from.
Mm,
You have to know the deck of cards you have so that you know how to play the game in the world. And I don't mean to trivialize it by using a game metaphor, but you have to be able to say, here's who I am. And if you're not clear about that, then you won't be able to say that. And
mm.
if you're not clear about that, people can catch you off guard and they can push you around. And, like you were mentioning, somebody who's, just not interested at all. Well, they want you to be their cat toy. They just want to bat you about a little bit and get some power. Well, you want to be able to stand your ground or retreat and just say, no, not playing, happy happy to talk about it when we're on equal footing, but right now there's too much emotion, and you can walk away. you know it's very important to get yourself as centered as possible, and that doesn't mean you're going to be all benign and kind of all the time.
I am
it
never impacted by what everybody says.
No, 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 that's craziness. But, and I don't mean that in the clinical term, but we have feelings and we want to learn how to express them in the most helpful and useful and clear way, and not to be triggered and reactive and overly reactive. But we also don't want to be silent about it and not share what's up for us, because then how could other humans absolutely know? So when we're looking at dealing with things, one of the things we have to look at is, why do we avoid dealing with things?
Mm. And what do you find most often is the reason?
Well, it depends on the things. If it's the dishes, whole other matter. But if it's a volatile conversation, or you're afraid somebody's going to be disappointed and you might lose the relationship, then it's very important to have prepared yourself as to know what is of high value to you and be able to express it and be able to tell someone, I'd like to work on this because I value the relationship. And then learn to have boundaries, express them, maintain them. People prefer to hear your boundaries. If they're healthy, if the other humans are healthy, they like to know. Hijackals don't care for your boundaries at all. They really, really do not like it when you do that. And it's absolutely essential to do it. And I teach my clients to do it in the most benign way possible, the way that they express it, the way that the words they choose, the tone, everything that they do, in order to begin to set those boundaries with the least possible explosion. But we need to be able to do that, and we need to believe that we deserve to set a boundary. We honestly have to believe that you have the right to take up space and draw breath around here, and that in that way you're supposed to contribute who you are.
Yes, and it's when dealing with a hijackal, it's like dealing with a minefield in a sense. You can go forward if you have the right tools and technology to avoid the mines, and every now and again, something's going to go off just because it goes off. But if you're choosing to stay in that kind of a relationship, there are skills, there are strategies and tactics that I know you've developed and you've written about on your blog. You talk about in your Save Your Sanity podcast, your Emotional Savvy podcast, your and in the consultations you do with people. So The resources are here for you, whether you want to navigate with a very toxic person or you just want to get over the hump in your own personal development and feel better about yourself. I think we've talked about a lot of different strategies today. It's been a really rich conversation.
Yeah, it has been really good, and I think when you start to do some of the things that we've talked about, when you start to allow yourself to say, "I'd like to be that empowered," and I recognize that to be that empowered, I have to spend time with myself, and I have to be willing to look at where I came from, what I value, how I'd like to demonstrate my current values in the world. How do I do that in communication? How do I feel great every day about who I am and how I present myself? These are all worthwhile things, and there can't be a better time to do it than in a pandemic because you're at home and you have the time to get acquainted with you.
So take the time and or call us. Contact
Yeah,
us.
we're here.
We are here and we'll be back again in another couple of weeks with another empowering topic for you. So take care, everyone. Be good, be well, and
Bye bye.
bye for now.